If you are only interested in the configuration of the device, I recommend that you go to the unit that I indicate below so that you can see briefly that I did in the FORTIGATE and what the MIKROTIK did. On the other hand, if you don't know what a site-to-site VPN is, I recommend that you review Cerberus video that explain in detail how this technology works and why is this important. Having said that, let's go with the configuration. The topology that I will use for this scenario is the following. Don't worry if at the moment you still can't memorize it or there are something that causes you doubt. As I go through the configuration, I will show you with all kinds of details, arrows, boxes, but and more so thanks don't miss any important details about that I'm setting up and how you should do it in your own scenario. At the moment, you only have to keep one thing in mind. The device must have connectivity with the public IP of the MIKROTIK device or unless the IP address that is sent on the WAN interface. As you can see here, one IP address is in port 1 of the FORTIGATE and its IP address is 200.0.0.1, 24 bits mask. On the other hand, the MIKROTIK will have 200.0.0.2 and its WAN interface. In this case, it will be Ether 1. Regarding RAN networks, the FORTIGATE in its port 2 will have the IP address 192.168.10.0 with a 24-bit mask, and turn the MIKROTIK sits after Ether 0 interface will have an IP address in its Ether 2 interface will have an IP address 192.168.20.0 also with a 24-bit mask. The configuration we will start in the FORTIGATE. If we go to PC1 and perform a continuity test, you will realize that the pin has absolute connectivity with the address 200.0.0.2 of the MIKROTIK and the WAN interface, which means that the NAT is configured and operating in the FORTIGATE. Of course, yes. Now let's go to PC2, which is the PC connect to the MIKROTIK router. You will realize that it also has absolute connectivity, which shows that the native operating system exists on both the MIKROTIK device. What we're going to do now is go to FORTIGATE graphical interface to be able to configure it. At this point, the first thing you are going to do is go to the VPN section, and here you will choose the IPsec tunnel options. The continuing FORTIGATE can support you with some predetermined templates to be able to make an IPC VPN more easily. We are not going to use at this moment since we want to customize some configuration. So you are going to choose the custom option and we will enter the name of our VPN. In this case, it will be called VPN to MIKROTIK. The first thing you're going to do when you are told about the new template is to choose the destination IP address of the WAN interface with the router or device with which you want to create this tunnel. In this case, is the IP address 200.0.0.2. Today has many options when it comes to enabling remote IP address, but in this particular scenario, we are going to do it simply through the static IP address set in both the WAN addresses of the FORTIGATE and the MIKROTIK. IC interface when you have configured more than one IP address, so you will have to specify it through the local flag gateway. However, in this case, we have only considered one address for port 1. This is not necessary in the traversal NAT. It is only necessary in case the remote device is beyond a NAT, in this case it has its own public address and is one interface, so it will not be necessary. The DAP rejection option will be used in case the VPN tunnel goes down or something happens that causes the stability of the connectivity to be affected. So we are going to choose the on-demand option, so if the VPN goes down for any reason, it will automatically phase 1 will try to negotiate a session again in order to be able to lift it. Later we are going to configure the authentication. There are two types of methods that are the most popular. One is through a pre-shared key and the other through certificates. In this case, we are going to do it through a pre-shared key. I'm going to use a varied password. Sample from 1 to 6, which obviously for real scenarios is not recommended. But in this case, it is simple. A test tutorial will be enough for you to understand how the IKE versions works, and is always divisible to use is in this version number 2. However, it is possible not all devices have this option enabled. So if not, you will use one. However, the MIKROTIK I know option to enable, therefore there will be no problem. Now, to be able to conclude phase 1, we will need to make a proposal. This means establishing what the mechanism of channel 1 is going to be so that the case can be forwarded securely. For this, we are going to choose an encryption and authentication system. On this opportunity, I am using a limited version of FORTIGATE, which does not have all the encryption and authentication system that I would like, but in a real scenario is the ideal is to use for encryption as 256 upwards and authentication SHA-256 or higher. In this opportunity, I am simply going to use DES for encryption and MD5 for authentication. Finally, we have to configure phase 2. This time I'm going to name it branch 1, and here you will simply have to specify the local network and the remote network. Remember that in this case the local network is 192.168.10.0, while the destination network is 192.168.20.0. The default options must be enabled, such as response detection and PFS. This is always recommended because in the event that the VPN goes down for some reason, new stations can be created for new case or case. Really, which if someone for some reason managed to capture our case, they will not be useful to encrypt future traffic. We choose grab 5 and DH, and we keep the rest of the values per terminate. It is always recommended to use auto negotiations because in this case something unexpected happened. The VPN connect again in the afternoon. If you are using particular service within the VPN, you will have to use certain outward ports. In this case, I want to allow all traffic. That's why I'm going to activate this flag. You click and OK, and you can now see that the tunnel is already been created. The second step to create your VPN is the firewall policy. For that, you are going to go to policy object and you are going to take the firewall policy option. Once here, we are going to create a new policy that will be called MIKROTIK access. So that you understand how the VPN policy works, in particular, you will have to perform the following exercise. Is this in the FORTIGATE? The incoming traffic in the VPN will be from your local network to the destination network. In turn, the traffic from the VPN will enter through the VPN to your local network. Therefore, in order to create these policies, they will first have to create an access policy. From the first direction, and then in the opposite direction, this time the policy will be called access to the MIKROTIK, because the traffic will be from your LAN network to the network of the destination site. Therefore, the traffic that enters through the LAN interface will leave through the VPN interface. In the origin and destination options, generally everyone simply chooses the everything option. However, this is not recommended because there could be certain policy conflicts. So I recommend that you do the following within the origin or destination option that will open to you. This entry you will choose the create option, and here you will create your own policy, which in this case will simply be to resolve or select the interesting traffic that is your local network, which could be the source site. In the destination network, which could be the destination site. In my case, I am going to call a red land, and the IP address of the network is 192.168.10.0 with a 24-bit mask. Of course, we will do the policy on one side. We will also have to do it with the destination policy. So I am going to create another object that will be to called network MIKROTIK 192.168.10.0. Also, with a 24-bit mask, the rest of the value remain by default, simple remembering and keeping in the mind, and the youth have always enabled the policy. In this case, it is enabled by default, so there will be no problem. Click on OK, and as you see here, the policies has been created and is operational. However, as I explained, when you want to create a site-to-site VPN, you have to create policies that go both directions. Probably what you are looking for is to create a new policy with the inverse parameters without. However, I have the ability to create a complete policy in reverse. So you are going to right-click in the policy that we already created, and you're going to click on the clone option in reverse. And that way, how to remove the policy that has been created is exactly the same, but with the inverse objects. That why if you enter the policy again, you will realize while one went in one direction, its old policy now goes the other direction in this one. Therefore, as we create a policy that says access to the MIKROTIK, it will say VPN from the MIKROTIK. All the value will remain by default without forgetting to enable this possibility. In the flag that you see here, if you click on OK, you will realize that this is already enabled and working. Finally, what you have to do is the route static. You're going to configure this in the network static router section. Here the first, it is very simple. The FORTIGATE must reach destination site. Therefore, you're going to enter the IP address of the destination network, which is the case the network 192.168.20.0 mask 24, and you're going to access the access interface. The access interface will obviously be the VPN to the MIKROTIK, as you see it here, and you will designate a priority of only one so as not create conflict with other static routes that could be configured in your device. At this point, we have finished the FORTIGATE configuration. Let's see what happened in the MIKROTIK. Well, MIKROTIK is a singularly simple configuration method that FORTIGATE, since we are simply going to take the step and this tip will go hand in hand with the next one. First, we are going to configure our profile, and then we are going to configure the peer. Later, we are going to configure the identity, then the proposal, and then the policy. If you already understood how the logic of the VPN works, then you will realize that the parameters to configure in the MIKROTIK are quite intuitive. For example, in the profile section, I'm going to write a name. What is VPN going to the bridge? We have to leave the parameters the same as we have configured them in the FORTIGATE. As you see in this image, we have configured a hash algorithm that is MD5 or less in the one that is already incorporated in the encryption algorithms of phase 1. Is different from the group DH we have chosen number 5. If you do not know what the equivalent of the DH groups is between what the FORTIGATE and the MIKROTIK shows, it is because the FORTIGATE shows us the group has a denomination and its equivalent is being shown here. In our case, we have chosen option 5. Therefore, the KI will be 1536 bits, as you see in this option. On not transversal, it must be deactivated as we had done on the FORTIGATE, and we apply the chains. Later, we are going to configure we also put a name, the IP address of the destination on this peer, which is 200.0.0.1. The port will be default is the number 500, and the local address which is 200.0.0.2. In the profile option, we are going to choose the previous one. As I told you, you are going to always choose the configuration made before. In each of the steps, the Asian mode is going to be under that 2, which we have also configured in the origin. If you enter the identity section, you will realize that almost all the values simply have to be left default. The only thing we need at the point is the authentication method. As we had said before, it will be a pressure code. Therefore, we have defined the case secret that we're going to be from 1 to 6. We put apply, and this okay. The next step is to establish a proposal. In the proposal, just as we had done on the FORTIGATE, that we are looking for is to start phase 2. At this point, we have to choose the algorithm authentication, the encryption algorithm, and then if there is going to be a need for a PFCS group, which in this case will also be group 5. Apply the change, and you will also click OK. Finally, establish the policy in the policy. We will simply establish the peer that we have created previously. We are going to put the tunnel option, which indicates you now IPC VPN tunnels have 2 ways of working. The one through tunnel mode and the other through transport mode, and tunnel mode is hidden in the IP address originals, and the header is replaced by another section to be displayed in plain text. This time we are going to do it in tunnel mode since it is safer to enter the source address, that is 192.168.20.0, and destination address, which is in the case 192.168.10.0. Apply the change and click OK. In the action section, you are going to choose the proposal that you have previously configured, and once you have applied the change in a number of seconds, the VPN will have been left and the state of phase 2 will have been established, as you see here. If we go to the forts and there, you will realize that everything is well configured and that the VPN has been up. So if now you want to do a connectivity test, you can do it but there will still be no connectivity between these sites. This is because the rule needs to be configured of the firewall and MIKROTIK. That's why you go to the firewall section and you see it's here and the NAT rules. You are going to create a new rule. Remember that is at this moment the device are adding the address to grant internet access to the computer that are within the LAN network. Therefore, you are going to create a new rule with source network. You are going to place the source and destination address in this section, and the action will be to accept to log as will also be marked to apply any of this. And if now we perform a new test of connectivity, you will release that there's connectivity without problems. That when you create a site-to-site VPN with a FORTIGATE device and a MIKROTIK device, you will see what other type of reference and device we can create in the video you see here.